The combine has started, and it's mock draft season, and everybody wants to know where the Lions go from here, especially if you've been listening to Brad Holmes' comments. It seems like they're going to value their cap space. They're going to value their draft picks, and so they're going to get busy here, I believe, in this coming draft. And we got another prospect breakdown day. Which prospect would you rather the Lions draft? Tennessee edge rusher James Pearce Jr. or Alabama linebacker Jihad Campbell?
Yes, we had it.
Linebackers?
We had a graphic about it on our socials. You got that, JB?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And also on our socials, we posted James Pearce Jr. and Jihad Campbell's 40-yard dash, and those are definitely two players that help themselves out at the combine. Let me start out with this, because you can take this in a way of breaking them down, getting into the nitty-gritty, or you can look at philosophically how they would help the Lions. I want to start with the fact that if either of them are there, available at 28, what Brad Holmes should do is he should call up his wife, give her the best 2 minutes she's ever had, sprint to the podium, and take one of those guys. Seriously. No foreplay will be needed.
Or less.
If those guys are available, you take either one of them.
How many picks on a pick meter?
Like 10, 15. No. And it's not so much that they're like the most can't-miss prospects of all time. It's the fact that at 28, I think they would both be absolute steals. I don't even know necessarily which I would prefer. It's just a matter of, what do you want on this team? I'll start with James Pearce Jr. because James Pearce Jr., for the record, according to the PFF Big Board, is the number 10 ranked overall prospect and the number 2 ranked edge rusher after Abdul Carter, of course. And with him, there we go. There's the 40 time right there. And speaking of that 40 time,
4.5 is crazy.
And he actually
for
ran
a
another
DN.
one, which was 4.47, which is a faster 40 time, by the way, than Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, CeeDee Lamb, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this guy's 6'5", 245, by the way.
And plays defense.
And also, I don't know if you guys have seen
6'5", 245?
6'5", 245. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have seen as well, in the agility drills, which are mainly for defensive backs, he looked like a DB out there.
Yeah.
Just absolutely insane. And this was big for him because James Pearce needed to be fast. And the metrics are good, 23% pass rush win rate last year. He's good against the run. He was also extremely productive at Tennessee. 17.5 sacks in the last couple of seasons, 28 tackles for loss, 2-time All-SEC. So he's, to me, as close of a sure thing as an edge rusher as there is in the draft, other than an Abdul Carter. And I think that his ceiling is high. So if you want just a bookend edge that kills quarterbacks and can help Hutch kill quarterbacks, James Pearce Jr. is your guy. Now with Jihad Campbell, there's a little bit of a different skill set. But first, James Pearce Jr., are you guys in or out?
I was just going to add, especially when you're thinking about all the things Brad Holmes has talked about with this draft process. And for him, yes, the combine numbers, they tell a story, but he's looking at, as you alluded to, how does this guy look in pads? That's exactly the same approach that they took to Brian Branch. They were like, we just love the way this guy looks out there on the field. And when you combine it with the production, you combine it with the numbers, the measurables, and just the fact that both of these players look like their motor is on 100, you know that it aligns with everything Brad Holmes has already said about his evaluation. Then when he steps to the podium and effectively gives us, we were wondering, is he going to trade? Is he going to spend big money? No, it looks like going the route of the draft might be still that Brad Holmes way, and we've seen him go out there and get some number ones. And so when you see players like this, and you know that out of your 5, you're saying 10 or 15, it definitely gets me fired up as a Lions fan.
Absolutely. And I see a couple of comments. Gromit0237, game film never lies. And James Pearce Jr. has that in droves. And not just this year, but the past year, his numbers were even better. But his numbers were good both years. Skydog, combines doesn't mean jack to me. And I disagree to some extent, but I always lean towards the guys who are productive in college, who've got the combination of productivity, they've got the metrics, and they've got the talent and the just the body for it in the tape.
Because Brad Holmes didn't dismiss the combine, he just said that he's not making his selections based off of the hype surrounding the combine.
As you should.
When he put in, years of work, he said, with some of these players, dating back to when they first pop up as high school recruits, of following these players and then through their college careers and such. So you don't just go off of what they do at the combine, but it tells a story. You don't dismiss it either. And so far, the Brad Holmes way, especially when you talk about the draft, has been brilliant. It's put him in a position that he talked about. He says, you know what? We're at a position where we want to pay our guys. We have to pay our guys. And so if those draft picks can get you that rookie contract scale guy, that's where a DN like this, where people were wondering, can we get a Jared Verse type guy in this year's draft? That's where I get excited for players like this.
Oh, yeah. And I think he's a little bit of a different player than Jared Verse. But I know you're talking about like a game-changing – because, Jared Verse was a monster for the Rams and really was a game-changer for them. And I think James Pierce has that type of game-changing ability. I guess if there's any concerns, it would probably be his size. And I know his broad jump wasn't great, or it was his broad jump. It was his vertical jump, but I'm not too concerned about that because the tape don't lie, his speed don't lie, and I think he would be a great addition to this team. Although at the end of the day, one of my stock answers is I don't think he falls, but if he does, I already detailed what I think Brad Holmes' process should be, and that's exactly what he should do. What he should do. KG, James Pierce Jr., would you like it, love it?
Oh, I'm all in. I'm all in. And my main thing is I'm trying to book in somebody with Hutch that's a true athlete. And that's something that Hutch hasn't had his entire time he's been here. He hasn't had somebody on the other side that is just as much of an athletic freak as he is. So I think if you go out and you get a James Pierce Jr., which you can't take everything from the combine, of course, but it does tell you something. And something that is telling you is that you can't teach speed. This guy can get around the edge very, very fast. And he also has the game tape to back it up. Like you said, 17 sacks over his college career. That's no small feat right there. I do understand his lack of ability to use his hands at times. He tends to, rely on that speed too much. But that is something that you can coach at the next level. So I think just what he is right now, he's still a little raw, but his overall ability projects him to be a top-end pass rusher. I would absolutely go all in on that as opposed to a Jahad Campbell, which I like a lot of things about Jahad, and we'll get into it. But if I had to pick between the two right now, based on what our needs are, absolutely you go after a guy with this kind of athletic ability.
And I don't hate that at all. I mean, for the record, I don't even know who I would choose between the two. But,
it's a tough choice.
We'll see. Maybe I will talk myself into one and not the other. Because right now I'm talking myself into James Pierce Jr. over Jihad Campbell. But to be fair, we haven't really discussed Jihad Campbell yet and all that he can bring to the table as well. And I think we should do that when we get back. We can separate the prospects because I think they both have deserve to get time on their own, because I think either of them, if they get to 28, it is an absolute steal.
You know how I feel about those linebackers.
Hey, I know where you're gonna pick.
And that's the thing. They haven't done anything to shore that up. Last offseason is just the offseason that they do that.
Yep. And Gritville, USA, Hutch, Pierce, and Zadarius rotating in and out for them would be hell of a. And that's the thing. Yes. Zadarius is a little long in the tooth, and that's okay, by the way. He can be here for next year. He can be that bookend. I'd even be comfortable with him being like the number 2 edge rusher if they don't do anything else. But James Pierce Jr., it's about setting up the future, having that bookend edge rusher on a rookie contract after you pay Hutch. Make him maybe the highest paid defensive end in the NFL.
Shout out to Easy as well. I see they're going to have a special guest on the show later. Coach Calvin Shepard is going to be on the heavyweight?
Apparently.
No.
Apparently he is.
He is? What? Can we get like pictures and everything?
I guess, yeah, it'll be a camera on them the whole time. So. Y'all motherfuckers. Sick of y'all shit, man.
In for another young legend, Spin Mo Racks. But talking about Jihad Campbell, and you said that this is another one of those guys on your out of 5 pick list, you're talking 10 or 15 picks if they're available. At 28.
At 28. Specifically at 28, yeah.
At 28. And this is one that last year I was wondering, okay, are they going to do anything at the linebacker core? But when they started really talking about the growth of, Jack Campbell, and then we saw how formidable Malcolm Rodriguez was before he went down. And some of the steps forward Derek Barnes took, I was okay with it. Obviously, Alex Anzalone is just, he's a beast. But this year, you got an opportunity to go and actually add something to that linebacker core. And if he's there at 28, and I still know you're still mulling between the two, but Jihad Campbell is one of the guys that you would consider.
Well, to bring this full circle, James Pierce in a vacuum as a player in terms of what you would think would benefit the Lions in terms of a bookend edge rusher, I would probably rather have him. But with Jihad Campbell, when you watch his film, when you see what he did last year, he was highly productive. He blew the combine to shreds. He was one of the combine stars, by the way. And when you listen to other people talk, like I obviously have discussions with Spencer, who was very high on Jihad Campbell. I've come to the conclusion that the appeal of a Jihad Campbell to the Detroit Lions is that on this Lions team, he could end up being Derek Barnes on steroids. And I think that that's what is the most intriguing. And Jihad Campbell, he showed last year, if you want somebody that can play on the line and can rush the passer, he showed a pretty high pass rushing upside as well. He played 99 pass rush snaps, got 5 sacks. I know some of them are on blitzes, but that's a very good percentage. And he also played over 100 snaps on the defensive line. So he's somebody that his pass rushing upside is certainly tantalizing, I would say. His coverage numbers are fantastic. He allowed an 88 passer rating when targeted, which is great. Good against the run. This is a PFF stat that I'm actually not so sure of, but apparently he had 30 coverage stops, which was first out of any linebacker in this class, which I assume is like incomplete passes or even maybe short passes where he just tackles the back or tight end immediately. As you can see, his 40 time was fantastic. His 40 time was actually faster than Will Anderson's, which I find it intriguing that they're using Will Anderson as a comp because Will Anderson was a lot more of a pass rushing demon coming.
Say Fred Warner.
Yes, Fred Warner. That was a Daniel Jeremiah, and I believe I have that in Slack as well. You will see, Jihad Campbell's measurables at the combine compare very favorably to one Mr. Fred Warner, and we obviously know that Fred Warner is elite. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's an All-Pro, but Jihad Campbell's a better prospect than Fred Warner was. I'm not saying that Jihad Campbell is going to be Fred Warner. It's just that I find it personally intriguing that when they're talking about measurables, they talk about Fred Warner. But I also think that enough experts think highly enough of Jihad Campbell's potential pass rushing upside that they're making comparables in 40-yard dashes with Will Anderson. So I think in conclusion, what would intrigue me about Jihad Campbell is to potentially fill an immediate need. You could let Derek Barnes walk and you could bring in somebody who is better than Derek Barnes. I think will be better than Derek Barnes on day one and have a very high pass rushing upside, much higher than Derek Barnes. So obviously getting a linebacker in the first round again after the Jack Campbell situation, even though Jack Campbell was good, it seems unconventional, but you plug Jihad Campbell in as the Sam linebacker on this team. I think he makes their defense better immediately, and I think he's a day one starter.
And Michigander 1212, I see you in the chat. He says Jihad reminds me of Micah Parsons, who can play both in pass coverage and
I'll tell you what, Micah Parsons he's one of one. Like, even when I watch Mike, because I watched a lot of Big Ten football, obviously, as a Michigan fan, when you saw Micah Parsons at Penn State, he would make me salivate. Like, watching him, I would just be like, who the F is that guy? Just one of those.
And I hate Penn State.
One of those, like, insane specimens who was also very productive. Kind of the same way that I felt about Jadeveon Clowney when he ended Vincent Smith's life, where I'm just like, oh my God, who is this? Obviously, I knew who he was, but just looked different out there. But the Micah Parsons thing, I don't think that anybody in this draft is going to be Micah Parsons, quite frankly, except maybe Abdul Carter. But I think what he's saying is that in college, people forget Micah Parsons was not just a pass rusher. He was an all-around linebacker. He could cover. He was good against the run. He played off ball as well. He's turned into one of the best pass rushers in the game when he got to the NFL because that's how the Cowboys have utilized him, and that's how they is going to be that. But it's not a crazy thing to look at Micah Parsons and be like, huh? You know, Jihad Campbell has a pass rushing upside as well. Maybe he can be a poor man's. Maybe he can be more of an off ball. You could deploy him any way that you want, and I think he'll succeed.
Because I do know, I'm so grateful that the Detroit Lions have a player like Alex Anzalone. When he got back in the playoffs, we saw instantly the effect that he had on his team, the high IQ he has, the end-to-end speed, sideline speed, and just the tenacity he has, the ability to cover a little bit, and the ability to get after it in the run game. But at what point in time do the Lions need to start thinking to beef up that linebacking core? Because Alex Anzalone is 30 and not getting younger. And that's where, when I think about a player like a Jihad Campbell, and you talk about making sure that Jack Campbell, who they believe is prepared to be that guy, they already say he's a green dot type linebacker. That's where I'm wondering, like, at what point in time do they go and give him some more help, thinking about that long-term success, and does Jihad Campbell kind of fit a little bit of that?
Yeah, it's certainly an intriguing possibility because we obviously linebacker is a position that I think I know you don't overlook it, but you like to bring attention to the fact that Alex Anzalone, he's past the age of 30. Malcolm Rodriguez is coming off an injury. Derek Barnes is in a contract negotiations. He might be let walk. Jack Campbell's obviously amazing, but Jihad, I think, just for the need on this team, is one of the more intriguing picks in this draft. And just one more thing before I pass it over to KG. And I know Neil Rule harps on this a lot, and this is something where I actually think he has a good point. Jihad Campbell is clearly, at least in terms of prospects, the best linebacker in this draft, in terms of like off-ball linebackers and not pass rushers. And if you have the opportunity to get the best player at a certain position at 28, that is as intriguing as you can get.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. And he does project to be a complete linebacker. He makes plays all over the field. I love what you can possibly do with him in terms of blitzing him, just based off what he showed us this past year, his ability to get to the quarterback. He does have good bend around the corner, and he's able to get home pretty well. So also, what he can do in passing coverage, I think is pretty damn good for a player coming out of college. It's just I don't know if we need top-end talent at the linebacker position just based on what we have right now. And, you look at Jack Campbell, and people forget, you might have, had gripes about where they took him at, but he was undoubtedly probably the best linebacker in that draft, and the Lions decided to make a move on him. And already 2 seasons in, he's showing you the improvement that you wanted to see. He's a 100-tackle guy. He's improved in coverage. He's still not perfect, but I project him to get better over time. And then you still have somebody that, with Alex Anzalone that's experienced, that can pretty much do it all. He's a Swiss Army knife at the linebacker position. And I think that you can just rock with those two. And if you have to replace like a Derek Barnes, I think you could just move to more of a specialist type role, because I think most people would say that Derek Barnes is maybe a specialist in the run game as opposed to the pass. I think you can just get by that way. And linebacker is always a position that you can always find in the draft. So even if you don't get them this year, you have a damn good chance to get a good linebacker next year in the draft as well, especially if you have a later first round pick. They will always be available, assuming they keep their picks. So I love a lot of things about Jihad Campbell. The recent injury kind of concerns me as well, but overall he is a can't miss prospect. He is somebody that if he does fall to you, you have to seriously consider it. But just based on our needs right now and what I think the Lions need, I would much rather just get a pure edge rusher as opposed to a complete linebacker when you already technically have 2 complete linebackers on your roster.
Hey, look, the Chat family, though, they look like they're for Jihad Campbell. Vincent E. pounding the table for Jihad Campbell. Michigander 1212. We need a linebacker since the Lions are releasing Jalen Reeves-Maybin, especially for depth. That was the news that came out yesterday. He also said Jihad sounds so likely since Brad loves Alabama players. RJ Graham, wow, we talking about Jihad Campbell, nice player. I love to have more Campbells for the soup.
That's facts. If you're from Alabama and if you're from either Alabama or you're a Campbell, you're good for this team, and Jihad's both. Yeah. I'm kidding. That's obviously like not a real thing, but but I'm just joking.
Yeah, but I do understand what KG is saying. He's not saying not to add linebacking support and help. But in terms of the high-end talent, because especially when you're talking about at 28,
right,
you do believe that there might be a little bit better help for the defensive side of the ball than maybe going at linebacker at that point.
And linebacker is always a position, once again, that you can either get in free agency, you can get in the draft if you want to wait a year. You're not in desperate need. It's a need, don't get me wrong, but you're not in desperate need of a linebacker at this point. And if he falls to you, which I seriously doubt he falls to you, because he's projected to be a top 5 pick, even with the injury, a team will still take a chance on him. So I doubt he's even there. But if he's there, you absolutely have to consider it. I just don't think we need that right at this current moment.
And I don't hate that at all, because at the end of the day, I said that I wasn't going to choose, but I think I have a slight lean when it comes to James Pierce Jr. and Jihad Campbell. And I think I would go slightly for James Pierce Jr. if I had to choose. And it's just for the simple fact that the possibility of having James Pierce Jr. on one end and Aiden Hutchinson on the other is just, it's tantalizing. We all know what Aiden Hutchinson can do, and when he's healthy, he's a Defensive Player of the Year caliber player. We know that James Pierce is a relatively can't-miss prospect. I'd qualify him as can't-miss as an edge rusher, and given the fact that he would get to play opposite Hutch, I think that would be a good position for him to come in and not have to have a ton of pressure on him. And both of them would just eat. They could end up having one of the better D-lines in football with a couple of guys like that. Aiden Hutchinson, a known, and James Pierce with a guy who's got a very intriguing ceiling, and I believe a relatively high floor as well.
Especially, with this draft, it looks like, if they're not trading for Myles Garrett type of a player, they're going to have a couple options in this draft, or a couple opportunities to beef up that defensive line. Is this one where you guys are hoping for both edge and interior help in this draft?
Yes.
Because that's what I'm looking at. Because when you think about the can't miss, potential can't miss prospect in Pierce, and pairing him not just with Aiden Hutchinson, but if you're going to get more draft help that can play or make a year one impact, and you're talking about what we already have here in Aleem McNeil when he gets back. That's where I do believe you're not, and Darius Smith is still here, you're not asking for this edge to come in right away and be our number one the way that we had to ask that of Aiden Hutchinson. Obviously, he was up for the task, but you're talking about a player that can come in here and give you high impact type talent with a usage that you can manage as he's still learning the NFL.
And honestly, too, given how valuable, they've always been valuable, but given how much they're going to be paid, having an edge rusher on a rookie contract, I think is going to be a very valuable commodity. I mean, ask the Rams how they feel right now. Hell, ask the Lions how they felt the past couple of years with Aiden Hutchinson. Because the contract that Aiden Hutchinson is going to end up getting, it's going to be prodigious.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
He's going to set the market. We all know that.
And then Will Anderson's going to get one that's maybe even bigger, and so on and so forth. So if you have Hutch paid and you have James Pierce on a rookie contract, it's just the possibilities are the ceiling for that is, as Marty Morningweg would say, high.
All right.
For real,
the bar is
and
high.
That guy 62 asks, what picks do we have other than 28? Obviously, the first
60.
round. 60, pick 2. We have a 4th round.
Yeah.
Pick 131 via the Philadelphia Eagles. I see here. Then round 6, pick 197 from Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then a plethora of a 7th round. 226, 229, 245 in the 7th round.
You have most of your draft arsenal, most of it.
Yeah, so they can go in there and definitely, if it's not a Jai Campbell, they'll have an opportunity to make something happen in this draft potentially. But is there somebody, I haven't looked at like the free agent list, is there somebody out there you think they can get? Because I would like to see them make some type of contribution to that linebacker core.
Linebackers, man, I'd have to look.
Yeah,
I mean, Khalil Mack is the one that stands out the most.
As like an
I mean, but he's older. We all know that, but he is somebody that's still productive and maybe might not command as big of a contract as we think. So I think that should be in consideration for the Lions. I'm not saying they should go out there and just absolutely do it, but it's something that they should consider, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think when we get back, we can. I think we should talk a little Pistons, because whether you like him or not,
TPB.
When Stephen A. Smith talks, our ears perk up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he said a couple of things.
He made some good points, but we're going to get to it.
Yeah, and I forgot the compensatory pick. Thank you, Easy.
Yeah,
We
the
got
third round.
rounder this year for the AG taking head coaching deal. So, all right, hey, let's say what up to some friends.
Got Jars, right?
Jars.
Oh yeah, Jars.
That good guy.
Let me clean up the super chat we got here. Shout out to Dante151 again for sending in another $9.99. He says, per the Athletic, the Raiders and the New York Giants are eyeing Stafford on a 2-year, $90 million contract, while the Rams prefer a 1-year deal with about $40 million. Like, that's just gross numbers.
The Rams are saying less years and less money?
Yeah.
That's kind of
That's
crazy.
crazy.
He took you to a Super Bowl. That's kind of crazy,
about to
dog.
say.
I haven't
I can't
felt
lie.
this bad for Stafford since he was a Lion.
Yeah.
They can't.
Goodness.
But it makes sense why he's sneaking off to Montana with Tom Brady. You know he likes to cheat on his franchises, so it makes sense why he's cheating. Because if that's what they offering him, I'd be like, F you too. Like, I'm gone.
They can.
That's crazy.
They could win it all with him, given how they've drafted recently.
Yeah,
That's what's
defensively,
crazy.
yeah.
They were the closest team in the playoffs to beating the Eagles. They had the ball with a 6-point deficit. It's strange. And what the heck is Matt Stafford going to do on the Raiders and the Giants? I mean, he's going to make them better, but does it matter? The Giants in that division, what's Stafford going to do for them? Like I said, he's going to make them better, but who cares?
You're right.
6-7 wins. Maybe?
Giants ain't going
I
nowhere.
guess if you're just trying to be on like the major media markets on both coasts, hey Stafford, just go check that off. You got a Super Bowl, so it's like just go do that. Low expectations.
He don't
Just
want to
chill
go
out
to
with
that
the
shit show though.
Giants.
It's a shit show over there. Is Brian Dable still coach?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shit. Like, come on, bro. What are we talking about?
I think
Hey,
Joe Shane still in power?
He's the bigger offender of the shit show.
True, but they both pretty bad. I mean, Brian Dable did himself
Send
no
it to the
favors.
Raiders, and then maybe, you know what, Sheila could be like, look, man, I'm the guy. You know, we're godparents to your kids. Help us behind the scenes, make this Max Crosby deal work. That's listen, Max Crosby, that's the Devin Booker to NFL for me. Just come home, bro.
It's not happening. Just
Come
like
on,
Devin
man.
Booker, it's not
Yeah,
happening.
it's not happening.
Maybe when Devin Booker is like 37 years old, he'll take a chance on the Pistons.
I've
But
been thinking about KD though.
once again,